One of the most repeated statements in bodybuilding is that your body can only absorb 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. And you have heard this so many times for so-called experts, from influencers, from bodybuilders, from personal trainers. And some people even freak out if they eat 40 grams of protein per meal, simply thinking there's something wrong with it. Others think that eating a big steak, which may have 50, 60 or more grams of protein, is absolute waste. But there is a problem. If your body could only absorb 30 grams of protein per meal, human beings would probably never survive. And just think about this for a moment. I mean, imagine a hunter killing an animal. And what does he do? He just cuts piece of meat which contains 30 grams of protein, or maybe he eats as much meat as he can, hoping that he will manage to preserve somehow the rest of it, and then eat again when he is hungry, maybe in 10 hours or maybe the next day. So he definitely wouldn't throw the rest away because it's waste. And yet millions of people still believe that eating more than 30 grams of protein per meal will be simply wasted. Today I want to show you why this meat simply refuses to die and why it makes no physiological sense and what really determines muscle growth. Because once you understand the difference between protein absorption and muscle protein synthesis, you will realize that most of the advice you have heard about protein timing, meal frequency and protein limits has been oversimplified to the point of become misleading. So let us begin with a very simple question. If only 30 grams of protein can be absorbed, why does a large steak contains far more than that, 80, maybe 100 grams of protein? So this myth actually survives simply because people do not differentiate between protein absorption and protein synthesis. And once you understand the distinction, then everything changes. Let's imagine you eat a large steak which contains 90 grams of protein. So if you absorb only 30 grams of protein, does it mean that you will simply flush 60 grams of protein into the toilet? No, absolutely not. This is not how digestion works. So when you eat that big protein meal, protein gets broken down into amino acids, and amino acids get absorbed in the small intestine and then they enter circulation. And the body is remarkably efficient in extracting nutrients from food. So in fact, if humans could absorb only 30 grams of protein, then we probably wouldn't exist right now, because large protein meals have existed for thousands of years. Before refrigerators, before plastic containers, before protein shakes, before fitness influencers, people simply ate food when food was available. And sometimes that means that they were consuming enormous amount of protein in one single sitting. The human body evolved to handle this type of situations. Now, where the whole issue becomes interesting is when people say that only 30 grams of protein can be absorbed. They are actually referring not to absorption but to something else. They are referring to muscle protein synthesis. And these are two very different processes. Absorption asks, can the body extract amino acids from food? This is regarding absorption. While muscle protein synthesis asks, the body has countless uses of amino acids. So this is where most of the fitness experts stop thinking. They assume that if the protein is not immediately used to build muscles, it must be wasted. But nothing could be actually further from the truth, because your muscles are not the only tissues that actually require protein. Your skin requires protein, your hair requires protein, your nails require protein, your blood requires protein, enzymes require protein, hormones require protein, not to mention internal organs like your heart, your liver, your kidneys, and also muscles. So all these tissues and all these organs, they all require protein. Amino acids are simply required for all of it. And somehow bodybuilding culture reduced the entire conversation to one question: how much protein can build muscle in one sitting? And even this question has been misunderstood. This is something very important to understand. And this is that the protein, which is not immediately used for muscle protein synthesis, doesn't simply vanish into thin air. The body can store amino acids temporarily in various pools and use them later for tissue repair, for production of enzymes, production of hormones, for support of immune system, and under circumstances even for energy. So nothing is simply mindlessly discarded. Now, have you ever seen a bodybuilder eating a big steak? Of course you did. You probably do the same. And have you ever seen a successful big bodybuilder who eats only 6 ounces of meat per meal and nothing more than that? Probably not, because people don't do that. Arnold didn't do it. Serge Nubre didn't do it. Sergio Oliva didn't do it. Lee Haney didn't do it. Dorian Yates didn't do it. So nobody did it. So all these people are aware that eating more than 30 grams of protein per meal is actually very beneficial. And this is why they have done it. Now, it is clearly the fact that all these very successful bodybuilders actually didn't just focus on eating 30 grams of protein per meal 6 times per day, but they focused more on total protein intake during the day, during the week, during the month, during the year. So that consistency in eating high amount of protein or total amount of protein rather than small doses separated in X amount of meals was the main focus. Also, high intensity training and also recovery. So all these factors actually contributed to building this phenomenal physiques. Everybody knows that, but people are still asking me, Dr. Nash, if it's true, why did 30 grams protein meat still so popular? So while all these very successful bodybuilders consume high amount of protein every day, every week, every month, every year, still there are millions of people who are still believing that if you eat more than 30 grams of protein per meal, the protein will simply be wasted. The real question isn't how much protein can you absorb. The real question is how much protein are you consuming over the weeks, over the months, over years. Because muscle is not built in a day. It takes long time to build a muscle. You need to understand that bodybuilding is actually a marathon. Nothing changes in one meal, in one day, in few days. You need to be consistent. And the protein intake is the part of that story. So the overall amount of protein that you consume on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis is what matters. And now we're actually entering the second myth, because not only that people think that you need to eat 30 grams of protein per meal max because everything else will be wasted, but they also believe that you have to eat 6 times per day in order to optimize your muscle growth. For decades, bodybuilders believe that you need to eat at least 6 times per day. Some even believe that you need to eat more, 7 or 8 times per day, simply because this will allow all the protein that you eat to stimulate maximum muscle protein synthesis. And this has, in a way, become a gold standard. You know, bodybuilders are known to carry containers with them in a little trolley. Meals have to be eaten every 2 hours. They live by the clock. Every meal must not be eaten in the wrong time. And if you, God forbid, miss one meal or 2 meals, everything will collapse. You're going to start losing muscle immediately. But this is absolutely not true. But there is a question that nobody seems to ask, and this is, if eating every 2 hours is absolutely essential for muscle growth, how did people actually survive? Because they didn't eat 6 times per day, 6 30 grams protein meals per day. And the answer is obvious. Not only did humans survive, but they also thrived. They were strong, they were capable, they had enough muscle mass to fight, to run, to sprint, to lift heavy objects, and everything was fine. There is absolutely no problems with eating less. And people would eat maybe once or twice a day. Sometimes they wouldn't even eat every day because food was not abundant and available all the time. There were no protein shakes, there were not plastic containers, there were no amino acids, there was no creatine and glutamine and similar supplements. no pre-workout drinks, not night formula, day formula. They were simply eating as much protein as they could have eaten in a single meal, because this is how the reality was. Now, human body has evolved about that natural circumstance and managed to absorb all of it. All of that protein has been utilized. Protein is never wasted. Now, let us think for a moment what happens when you eat a large protein meal. A lot of people believe that if you eat that large protein meal, certain amount of protein will be absorbed, and everything else that is more than it should be done will simply be wasted. But this is far from the truth, and the reality is very different. First of all, digestion takes time, and absorption takes time. Protein from the large meal can continue supplying amino acids to the body for many, many hours. So it's not true that if it's more than 30 grams, you will simply waste everything else. No, you're not going to waste anything, because your protein will be broken down slowly and amino acids will be released continuously into the bloodstream, which is actually the perfect situation. And especially if you eat protein with fat, as I suggested so many times in so many of my videos, because you get much better absorption and utilization of your amino acids simply because the digestion is slower. So there is no rush. If you eat 100 grams of protein in one meal, the body will use whatever comes first, and then you will have sustained release of amino acids for a period of hours, maybe 5-6 hours, and you will not be short of amino acids to build muscles. Now, for example, take two people. Both of them eat the same amount of protein, let's say 200 grams of protein. Now, the first person is eating 200 grams of protein in 6 meals, while the second person is eating in 2 meals. The question is, what will happen with protein absorption, and also what will happen with muscle protein synthesis? Which one will actually absorb more and synthesize more protein into muscle tissue? Now, the research has shown that there is no difference in protein absorption and also muscle protein synthesis in both of these people, simply because what matters is the overall protein amount consumed, not necessarily separation of that protein and number of meals. Now, if you are someone who likes to eat and who prefers to eat 6 meals a day, fine, you can do that. But if you're someone who prefers to eat less often but bigger meals, as I do and most of my clients do, you will have absolutely the same results. Now, you can eat 2 meals, 3 meals, 4 meals, 6 meals, doesn't matter how many meals you eat. What matters is the overall amount of protein that you consume during the day. So if that overall amount is right for you, then regardless of number of meals, you will be absorbing all of it. And also when it comes down to the muscle protein synthesis, difference will be minimal, if any. But there is the other problem when you eat 6 times per day. The problem is with insulin production. I spoke about it in separate video and explained why eating less meals per day, less frequently, will allow you to actually not only absorb the same amount of protein and use the same amount of protein for muscle synthesis, but will also allow your hormones to settle and your insulin to drop down between the meals, which is very important for insulin sensitivity. Now, insulin sensitivity is absolutely critical for muscle building. The person who is insulin sensitive will build more muscle than somebody who has insulin resistance, because insulin resistance, which can be caused by frequent meals, especially if those meals contain carbohydrates, will actually limit the amount of amino acids that can enter muscle cells. So think twice about this. Experiment and see what works for you. I would advise everybody to try. Simply try to eat, if you're eating 6 meals per day, try to eat 4 meals per day. See how you feel. See if there are any differences. Or maybe drop down to 3 or even 2. Spend a few weeks eating like that, and then analyze your progress. And I'm sure that you will see changes, especially in insulin sensitivity and most likely in body fat percentage drop. Because when you eat less frequently, your insulin will be lower. Therefore, glucagon and growth hormone will be higher, and that may contribute greatly to fat burn while you are building muscles. So this is something essential to understand and try to implement and see if that works for you. Now, there is something very important that I want to mention, and this is that for all these successful bodybuilders, the common denominator wasn't meal frequency. The common denominator was adequate protein, hard training, and consistency. Now, that consistency is a problem in modern fitness industry, because if consistency in training, in protein intake, in lifestyle is critical, then there is simply nothing more important. And all of a sudden, all these supplements, protein powders, amino acids, creatine, glutamine, similar supplements, they simply become secondary. And this is something that actually discern the simplicity, the consistency of healthy lifestyle for successful bodybuilder. But this is not that fitness industry likes. Fitness industry likes complexity, because complexity sells, simply because when they explain to you that you need to eat 6, 7, 8 times per day, obviously that will be very hard for you to eat in real food. So you will have to take protein shakes, and then you will have to take amino acids, and then you will have to take pre-workouts, and then you will have to take post-workouts, amino acids, and brain-chain amino acids, and this and that. And that complexity actually sells. And this is another factor that has to be taken into consideration, because often people achieve phenomenal results by following very simple diet and straightforward, simple training principles, as I advise, and they achieve phenomenal results. I was the best proof of that, because when I started really following the right training split and started eating very simple 3 meals a day, high protein, medium fat, low carb diet, I have changed beyond recognition. And that didn't require anything extra, because without complexity, all these extra attachments in the form of supplements, and you have to do this, and you have to take this at this time and that time, they simply drop away and you don't need them. So the most important thing, once again, for continuous muscle building is overall protein intake, hard training, and consistency. Now we are arriving to the third question, which people usually don't ask, but is very important to understand. And this is, if extra protein isn't wasted, so what actually happened to it? And this may be the most important question, because one needs to understand that human body is not just made of muscles. Human body is made of internal or vital organs without which we cannot live. You can live with small muscles, but you can't live without kidneys, without heart, without liver, and other organs or tissues. So your body needs amino acids to support all these other tissues and organs. So your heart needs protein and amino acids. Your liver needs amino acids. Your kidneys need amino acids. Your immune system needs amino acids. Your skin needs amino acids. Your connective tissues, which are very important, they need amino acids as well. Also your tendons, ligaments. So all these tissues and all these organs, they require amino acids. So when you eat the protein, again, remember, is not only used for muscle growth, is also used for other requirements of other tissues and organs in the body. Your body is recovering and rebuilding, rejuvenating its tissues and its organs continuously for 24 hours. So it's not just that during training you need protein before training, after training, during the day, during the night, because the body never stops rebuilding, recovering tissues which have been used or need rejuvenation or need repair constantly, 24 hours, every single day. And for all these processes, your body needs protein. So if the body doesn't use all the protein that you eat for muscle building, it won't be wasted. It will be used for even more important physiological functions of your tissues and your organs, which are simply vital. Now, some people say if it's eaten more than you need for muscle building, then the protein may be used for energy. But even for energy, if protein is used for energy, this is very good, because that's a very expensive process which is called glyconeogenesis, and protein can be converted into glycogen and used for energy, but that requires a lot of energy from the body. And where the body is going to get that energy from is actually from your fat stores. So that extra protein may even help you to lose body fat without doing that long hours of cardio and similar nonsense. As you can see, protein is never wasted, is always used. Some people will say, yes, but extra protein, the one that you don't use for muscle building, will be stored as body fat. This is very unlikely to happen. The conversion of protein into body fat is a very difficult procedure, and it will never happen. Nobody has ever got fat. People who were eating meat, eggs, fish, chicken only, they are actually people who get shredded to the bone. Nobody got fat by eating too much protein, simply because you will never be able to eat too much protein. There is another natural barrier which is called satiety, and when you eat certain amount of protein, this obviously depends on individual, your body will immediately stop. It will send you signals like production of a hormone called leptin, and signal that you have entered the state of satiety, and you will stop eating. You can't eat 20 eggs. You can't eat 2-3 pounds of meat in one sitting. I mean, most of you. But you try, and you will see how many you will eat before the body simply says that's enough. And you will be completely done. Full, not just physically full, but also mentally full. You will feel that satiety, and you will simply stop eating. So there is very difficult to overeat protein. It's much easier to overeat fat, and also, especially, it's much easier to overeat carbohydrates. And this is where the problem with fat actually is. Never in too much protein, because there will never be too much protein. Now I want to say that high protein intake is often associated with much better body composition, meaning more muscle mass and less body fat. So the reasons for that are many, but you simply have to look around and see people who are successful in bodybuilding, successful bodybuilders, and you will come to a very quick conclusion that all they have in common is high amount of protein. Professional bodybuilders are never on less than 3 grams of protein per kg. So if a bodybuilder is 100 kgs, that means he will be eating 300 grams of protein a day or more. Most of them eat even more. Amount of protein per meal can go up to 6 grams per kg, which has been known for people like Jay Cutler, Nasser El-Sombati, and so many others. I also had a high amount of protein especially during my competitive days, when I was eating 400 or 500 grams of protein a day. I was extremely muscular, well built. I competed with 102 kgs on the stage, and I was in amazing shape. And this is mainly thanks to high protein intake. So as you can see, protein wasn't wasted. Protein was always used for something else. And even if it was used for energy, it was used to the point that what would force the body to convert protein into glycogen, meaning the body will need huge amount of calories exclusively used from body fat in order to convert that protein in the liver into glycogen via gluconeogenesis. So wherever you look, you will see that high intake of protein, if not associated with high intake of fat and high intake of carbohydrates, actually contributes to greatest possible muscle development and also greatest possible fat loss. And these are facts. Everybody who has been in bodybuilding for some time, everybody knows that. Everybody who's been doing that has been doing that with fantastic results, and people still continue to do it because it's easy, it's simple, and it's sustainable, and you can eat like this for the rest of your life. You don't have to panic. You don't have to be hysterical about, I have another 15 minutes before my next meal. I have to eat 6 meals, 7 meals a day. No, you don't have to. You eat 2-3 meals a day. Eat as much as you want. Protein will be always limited. You will never eat too much protein, but make sure that protein is actually the main portion of your meal. If you have some carbs, limit them. As I said, they should be no more than 50 to 70 grams a day. Even that is not necessary. Fat should be usually half amount of protein. So if you have 300 grams of protein, you should be having 150 grams of fat. But this is, again, individual. Some people will thrive on a little bit more fat. Some people will require less fat if they need to burn body fat, if they have stubborn, slow metabolism, etc. But the principles are as I mentioned. So not just simplicity, but also sustainability. The diet which is sustainable is the best diet that you can follow. The diets that you cannot follow for forever, for years, the diets which you will always stop after 2 or 3 months, these are not good diets. They will never help long term. So now let me put everything together. Myth number 1, you can only eat 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. This is absolutely false. The body absorbs much more than that. Now, myth number 2, everything above 30 grams is wasted. False again. Protein can be used for countless physiological functions beyond muscle protein synthesis. So muscle protein synthesis is not the only reason you need protein. You need protein for so many other absolutely essential physiological functions. Myth number 3, you must eat every 2 hours in order to build muscle. False again. Meal frequency is less important than total daily protein intake. Myth number 4, perfect timing is more important than total intake. Again, false. The body rewards consistency, not perfection. And this leads us to the single most important lesson from today's video. Most people are asking the wrong question. They ask, how much protein can I absorb? What they should be asking is, am I consuming enough protein consistently to support muscle growth and recovery? Because this consistency and overall amount of protein taken over days, weeks, months, years is the secret, not necessarily perfect timing, 6 meals per day and similar patterns. After more than 40 years in bodybuilding, competing 46 times, winning 17 titles, coaching over 3,500 clients, I have published for you 13 eBooks which are fully loaded with detailed explanation about everything you always wanted to know about bodybuilding. So if you finally want to start building muscle, burning fat, and stop wasting time in the gym, click on the link in the comments and you can download my eBooks. I have also published for you Bodybuilding Blueprint course, which is made of 8 videos in which I personally demonstrate and explain the most effective exercises for all major muscle groups. So if you want to learn how to exercise in perfect form and obviously stop wasting time in the gym, click on that same link and you can access my Bodybuilding Blueprint course. So guys, if you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share the video and send me your comments. And until the next video, I wish you all the best.